This is a terrifying story, and somewhat enraging. We've had some very positive news as of late. Unfortunately, I hate to bring the mood down, but I kinda have to. This topic is undeniably important. You see, the Supreme Court, most of the appointees right now are Republicans. The seats are mostly filled red. Several of those appointees were put in place by Donald Trump. Donald Trump plans to have those appointees step down sometime before he leaves office, or croaks, I guess, and to appoint young, new Republican justices in their place. It's worth noting that Supreme Court justices either have to be impeached, step down, or serve until they die. Literally until they die of old age. It is a lifetime appointment. It is one of the few positions in our government that has lifetime appointments. I don't know why that's a thing. I do not know what they were thinking. It is a really bad system, because Trump plans to abuse it. He plans to stack the court with young, far-right Republicans, and his stated goal has been to, and I quote, lock in the Supreme Court as majority red for the next 50+ years. For the next half century, their goal is to hold the Supreme Court hard red. That is what their goal is. And with that Supreme Court, they plan to do a lot more stuff like what we're about to go over here. A couple days ago, I covered a story about how Donald Trump's Supreme Court signed a law that more or less made it so that trans people, when getting their future IDs or passports for traveling out of the states, like going out of America, going overseas, they will have to get gender markers or sex markers, gender markers, whatever the term is for it, that correlate with their gender assigned at birth or their sex assigned at birth. So before, there was an option to either put in what you choose or to go with a non-binary option that was just X. The X option has been removed, and now it must align with your sex assigned at birth or it will not be valid. Thankfully, older IDs are confirmed to have been grandfathered in, so those ones are fine. But if you are seeking to get a passport, unfortunately, it's going to have your wrong sex/gender on it. And this is as of a couple days ago because of Trump's Supreme Court. In the same breath, they turned their eye to same-sex marriage. I remember when the Supreme, or I guess federally, same-sex marriage was legalized. I think it was in 2015, if I remember right. It was a big deal. It was a huge deal. A lot of gay couples that lived in red states were finally able to get married, when before they would have to go out of state to get married, if at all, and their marriage might not be recognized in their home state. Now their marriage would be federally recognized. It was a huge deal. A massive step forward for LGBT people. You know, it was a big deal. It happened under Obama. Well, it looks like the Supreme Court is looking to ensure that same-sex marriage doesn't last more than a decade in America. Because only 10 years later, it seems as though the Supreme Court is about to strike down federally legalized same-sex marriage, which would return us back to the times where same-sex marriage will be illegal in red states and legal in blue states. Wasn't it Biden who pushed for same-sex marriage? Biden and Obama both did, yeah. Anyway, though, with that said, this is the story as we know it, and it is not looking good. If this ends up interesting you and you want me to talk about it more, leave a like down below so more people see it, more people hear about what the Supreme Court is up to. Gives it a little more visibility, a little more reach. Comment as well, it does help. Subscribe if you want to see more. And without any further ado, let's get into this. The Supreme Court is being impressively evil.
Joining us now is Leah Littman, University of Michigan law professor and co-host of the podcast Strict Scrutiny, and Mark Joseph Stern, senior writer for Slate and the co-host of the Amicus podcast. Mark, fill in the gaps here.
What is that wall behind him? Holy shit. That is some wall behind him. Holy crap. Like, interesting. Very interesting. I'm very curious to know what the deal with this is. I assume it's like, I don't know. That's cool, though.
Of the Amicus podcast. Mark, fill in the gaps here. Why is the same-sex marriage issue back before the Supreme Court today?
10 years later.
The court will be considering a petition by Kim Davis. You may remember she was the Kentucky clerk who refused to grant a marriage license to a same-sex couple shortly after the Supreme Court issued its decision. The couple she discriminated against sued and ultimately won $100,000 in damages. She is appealing that damages award and that decision and argues that she should have been able to raise a First Amendment defense that providing the license violated her freedom of religion. So what
it is literally a homophobe who is taking this case to the Supreme Court in order to establish a legal standard that will essentially make gay marriage no longer federally illegal. A single homophobe is going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court and destroy gay marriage. We do not exactly have a perfect system. To say the least, we do not exactly have a perfect system.
She's primarily asking for is to be free of a $100,000 judgment against her. But her lawyers added to the petition saying, while we're at it, we think this would be a great opportunity for the Supreme Court to re-examine and overturn the marriage equality ruling because it was wrong on the day it was decided, and it has had bad consequences for anti-gay religious individuals like Davis.
Leah, if the justices decide to take up this case, what does that tell you?
If they decide to take it up, I think it's clear they would actually overrule Obergefell versus Hodges. There's no real reason for them to take it other than that, but I still don't think that's likely to happen. As Mark's summary made clear,
they just ruled against trans people having representation on their identification. They just did an anti-trans ruling as a virtue signal. And you're telling me they're not going to take this case? That is almost certainly, I guarantee you, I will bet right now, the Alliance Defending Freedom is who is providing legal counsel for this woman. Not her, but like the lady who is pushing this to the Supreme Court, I guarantee you, it's the Alliance Defending Freedom backing her. Who here doesn't know what the Alliance Defending Freedom is? It's very relevant to this. You guys gotta know about this group. Yeah, Kim Davis. I bet these fucking people are behind her. The Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF, formerly the Alliance Defense Fund, is an American 501c3 nonprofit conservative Christian legal advocacy group. It works to expand Christian religious practices within public schools and in government, and is most known for its stance on outlawing abortion, opposing same-sex marriage and other LGBTQ rights, transgender rights, and anti-discrimination lawsuits, or laws. As of 2025, ADF has played a role in at least 74 Supreme Court decisions and directly represented 15 parties in Supreme Court wins. ADF is headquartered in Scottsdale, Arizona, with branch offices in several locations, including Washington, D.C. and New York. Its an international subsidiary, Alliance Defending Freedom International, with headquarters in Vienna, Austria, operates in over 100 countries. Oh my god, they're big. ADF is one of the most organized and influential Christian legal interest groups in the United States, based on its budget, caseload, network of allied attorneys, and connections to significant members of the political right. Mike Johnson, a former ADF attorney, was elected Speaker of the House of Representatives on October 25, 2023. Others who have been associated with ADF include U.S. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, former Vice President Mike Pence, former Attorney General William Barr, and Jeff Sessions. The Senator Josh Hawley. Since the election of President Donald Trump, ADF has become one of the most influential groups in forming the Trump administration. It has been designed or designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as an anti-LGBT hate group. As of 2018, ADF attorneys have won a number of cases from the Supreme Court. It has taken positions including support for religious activity in public schools and Christian prayer at town meetings, narrowing insurance coverage for contraceptives, prohibiting same-sex marriage, and supporting businesses in the wedding industry that refuse to service gay marriages. ADF lawyers wrote the model for Mississippi's anti-abortion legislation, leading to the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization to overrule Roe v. Wade. That's right, these fuckers are behind the overturning of Roe v. Wade. They did it. Mind you, by the way, do you want to see me predict the future? Do you guys want to see me predicting the future? I did this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has talked shit about the Alliance Defending Freedom like I have, okay? I have been screaming into the void for half a decade about this hate group, the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they are literally the fuckers that are about to, I guarantee you, they're behind but the potential ending of legalized gay marriage. But then on top of that, they have been behind a ton of horrible shit, and I've been warning about them for like half a decade. Obviously, I'm probably not the only one. John Oliver has made a piece about them. Oh, okay, I need to actually watch that. I don't think I've seen that. But like, I have not seen anybody significant with a left-wing platform online talking about them, and I used to talk about them a lot. I haven't kept up with them though. I didn't realize they had done so much since I made those videos warning people about them. That's actually quite surprising. Hot damn. Well, I am pretty confident that they might be the people behind this. I actually would be really surprised if they weren't.
This case involves a bunch of other questions aside from the future of marriage equality. And indeed, a few years ago, Kim Davis had asked the Supreme Court to take up this very same case at an earlier stage in the litigation, and the justices didn't do so. In fact, even Justices Alito and Thomas wrote to say they didn't even vote to hear this particular case to decide the future of marriage equality, even though they wanted to revisit that issue potentially in the future in another case.
Right. We know Justices Alito and Thomas have been vocal in their opposition to the Obergefell decision. Thomas even wrote in a concurrence to the decision overturning a right to an abortion that the court should, quote, reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold versus Connecticut, that's a contraception case, Lawrence v. Texas, a same-sex sexual relations issue, and Obergefell, the same-sex marriage case. Mark, it is a 6-3 conservative-leaning court. Do we know where the other conservative justices stand?
So, look, they haven't made it entirely clear the way that Thomas and Alito have. I think if marriage equality came to the court for the first time today, the court would rule 6-3 that there's no constitutional right for same-sex couples to marry. But this is now a precedent. It's been on the books for 10 years, as even Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Listen, we are watching MSNBC. And what I'll tell you is, I hope they're right. I hope that all the people talking about the Supreme Court seeing this case are just being paranoid. I hope everyone's just freaking out for no reason. That is what I really hope. I do think that MSNBC's reporters being so confident that this won't go anywhere in a time where being confident about anything being normal is provably, repeatedly a bad idea in this political climate. I don't like this way of handling the issue. It just seems very odd, very bizarre. Like, what do you mean they couldn't go through with this? Like, you really think this Supreme Court, of all Supreme Courts before, would not undo an established civil rights precedent established only a decade before? You think this exact Supreme Court would not be the one to do exactly that? Because I think it is exactly the Supreme Court that would do that. Literally, there is an Alliance Defending Freedom member on the Supreme Court.
Acknowledged in an interview recently, hundreds of thousands of couples now rely on this right, and that gives the court a good reason not to overturn it. My view is that justices like Barrett and John Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh, they are trying to undermine LGBTQ equality in different ways that will trigger less backlash for the court. Rather than go after Obergefell, they are legalizing discrimination against gay people in goods and services. They are probably going to soon overturn bans on conversion therapy for LGBTQ minors. They are weaponizing the First Amendment against gay and trans equality, but they aren't going to go right at Obergefell, at least not yet, because they don't really want to spend down their political capital on something that would be so massively unpopular.
Let me play the comment that Mark just referenced from Justice Barrett related to Obergefell and same-sex marriage. Listen.
Well, to make it concrete, right? Yeah. So in Obergefell versus Hodges, right, the Supreme Court recognized a right to same-sex marriage. Originalist justices at the time believed that ruling was wrongly decided. One of the arguments for why Obergefell versus Hodges is unlikely to ever be overturned is the idea that people have made decisions about who to marry and therefore where to live and children and everything else on the basis.
I really hope they're right, man. So it's MSNBC and New York Times are both erring more on the side that the Supreme Court will probably go with established precedents, that over the last 10 years it has been the standard that gay marriage is federally legal, and that taking that civil right away would be unreasonable. But, like, why are we pretending still that Republicans aren't just evil? And I don't mean Republican voters, I mean Republican politicians. Are we still pretending like they have any genuine motivations outside of crushing the left and crushing the minority groups that the left advocates for? Like, are we really going to pretend that is not literally all that they stand for?
Of that ruling.
Yes, those are absolutely reliance interests, but I wouldn't describe them. When you said social reliance interests, that kind of sounds like in things in the air. Those are very concrete reliance interests. So those would be classic reliance interests in the terms of the law, in terms of legal doctrine. Those would be like, those are financial. Those are, medical. Those are, you can imagine.
Yeah, like, how could they think this when we just lost Roe v. Wade to the same Supreme Court? If the Supreme Court does take down LGBTQ plus marriage, it's basically a death knell for the GOP and the Supreme Court. I do think it would be the end for the GOP, yeah. Like, taking down same-sex marriage and abortion, like, it would just be the Republicans owning all of the most unpopular policies that they've ever advocated for.
Going on.
So, Leah, when she talks about reliance interests, explain, what is that exactly? And do you think her answer means she's firmly against overturning Obergefell?
So reliance interests are part of the equation into stare decisis, the legal doctrine that tells the Supreme Court you shouldn't just overrule prior cases when you think they are wrong. And in particular, if there are reliance interests on those previous decisions, then the Supreme Court is counseled against overruling that previous decision. I found it interesting that Justice Barrett sought to distinguish the reliance interests on Obergefell from what she described as societal interests.
Remember, she is the one that is a former member of the Alliance Defending Freedom, the legal representation hate group that opposes gay marriage. So her take on this will probably guide the rest of the Supreme Court.
The reliance interests on Obergefell from what she described as societal interests, because it was the societal interests that led the court to say there actually were no reliance interests on Roe versus Wade, because the only kind of reliance interest there was society's reliance on the idea that women could control when and whether they actually had children. And so by distinguishing the kind of reliance interests that she indicated were insufficient as to, keeping Roe versus Wade, and suggesting there are different kinds of reliance interests on Obergefell versus Hodges, I think that is consistent with what Mark said earlier, namely several of the Republican appointees don't seem interested in outright overruling Obergefell at this particular moment.
We will see if they decide to take up this new case. Leah Littman, Mark Joseph Stern, thank you both so much for the conversation.
MSNBC's Kayla Gar.
Damn. Okay. Sorry, I clicked on the little pop-up. YouTube sucks like that these days. Anyway, though, hopefully the most optimistic assumptions that the Supreme Court will not go through with shutting down gay marriage federally will be accurate. But I don't think a lot of people realize that this entire administration, the entire era of politics we're in, is all about breaking the mold. It's all about breaking what we expect and surprising us. The fact that we can just assume anything is going to go the way it's supposed to is crazy to me. What kind of times do you think we're living in these days? Anyway, folks, if you like this video, leave a like, comment down below, and leave a hype to let me know that you guys liked it. It also helps a lot in the algorithm, and will help to compete against the right-wing slop in the algorithm as well. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. Follow my social medias. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again.